Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. I recently filmed a Q&A video, but because I had that many questions from you guys, it ended up being longer than a James Cameron movie. So I decided to split it into two. So this is part two. Right, first question. Marvhead, hi Matt, do you think there's an inherent mistrust of second-hand car dealers? Yes, definitely. Definitely. It's a difficult one to shake off, that, isn't it? I've always found that... Well, I'm not a car dealer really, am I? I got into this by accident really, and I just tried to make the best of it. I'm not a time-served car dealer as such. I suppose I am now, but only by accident. And everyone I deal with within the car trade, who are other car dealers, are all lovely people who are hardworking and honest. But I do keep my circle very small, and I wouldn't deal with anybody who wasn't. So perhaps that's just me. I'm sure they exist. I don't want to sound that naive that I don't think they exist, because they obviously do, but not within my circle of friends and co-workers and associates. Co-worker, that's an Americanism, isn't it? Colleague. Raj Purawal, what would your advice be to younger car traders wanting to get a trade policy but being quoted silly money? Any ways around it? Sadly not, Raj, no. You've just got to bite the bullet, I'm afraid. The thing is, once you've bitten the bullet and you've paid the horrendous trade policy fee, you've then got to make it work, haven't you? If it was just a few £100s, if it was cheap, you then wouldn't have the pressure on your shoulders to make it work. So, the fact that it is expensive means that you're going to have to work for it. I remember my first trade policy, I had the most basic cover possible. I was only about 24, I think. It was something like £3 a year, which at the time was horrendous, and I didn't have it, but I paid on instalments over 10 months or 12 months, whatever it was. And it just meant then that I had to go out and earn that £360 a month or whatever to pay it. So no, basically it's a very important thing, that insurance, so make sure you're covered, don't risk it, because it's just not worth it. But just go for it, and then you're kind of forced into making your business work then. Demon Ash 40, hi Matt, what's your favourite Jaguar ever made? The X308 XJR. I love those cars. I had one, sold it, and one day I will own another when I've got the space to keep it garaged properly and look after it. Apart from that, it's more modern Jags that I like. I love the XKR, the one from, I would go for a 2012 onwards with the LED lights. Yeah, I think they're great cars. I wish they still made an XKR, to be honest, because I probably would have bought one of those instead of my AMG. What I wish they'd done, actually, Jaguar, I think I mentioned this in the XKR video that I did. I wish they'd done a few more years of the XKR, but updated the interior so that it looked a bit more like the F-Type's interior, and just brought it up to date. Because that was the one sort of downside with the old XKR, the interior was a bit dated. Stuart Murray, hi Matt, outside of leaving a National Trust sticker on your car and leaving the radio tuned to Classic FM, what are some of the other top tips that will help customers get a better price from a dealer when it comes to part X in their vehicle? They're two very good ones. Straight away then, usually when I buy a car from, or 90% of the cars that I buy, I don't meet the previous customer, because previous owner, because they're bought from a local main dealer. So these are the clues that I have to take to assume the age and what kind of person the previous owner was. It's only a little stupid game that I play. Immediately though, to get a better price from a dealer, clean it, put all your paperwork in a folder. I've mentioned this before, but try and look organised with it. Any receipts you've got at home, bundle them all together. Straight away the dealer will think, God, this person's looked after this. So do that, clean it, make it smell nice. The amount of cars I get in, they're absolute buckets. And straight away you're just on a negative then, because you think, yeah, there's no way that if they can't even move the empty McDonald's wrappers from the back seat, there's no chance at all that they've had a brake fluid change done or a cam belt change. You just know. Whereas if everything's laid out all cleanly and nicely, you think, this person's looked after this. Hiren Patel, hi Matt, my question is, would you run Shell V-Power on every other fill-up on small cars like a Polo 1.2, etc.? Where do you stand on fuel additives like Red X? I've never used them, to be honest, so I don't know. But on more expensive cars, I use Shell V-Power every single fill-up. But on something, unfortunately I don't have any science behind this, but I'm convinced that it's better for your car's engine and general health. In fact, I don't really have evidence of this, but I do have experience of this. I've had DPF issues with loads of cars over the years, and I find that if you run them on V-Power diesel or premium diesel, that light goes out and you just don't have any more issues, because, well, I don't know why. I don't know why, basically. But so with something like a something cheaper and smaller like a Polo 1.2, maybe use it, maybe fill it up with Shell V-Power every other fill up, and that should be fine. I think it'll just help it run more smoothly. You'll have less carbon build-up and things like that. Daniel Simmons, hey Matt, if you were to buy a car to have fun with on the weekends but only had on-street parking outside your house, what would you go for? I would go for an Audi TTS, either convertible or coupe. They're great cars, and they're at that price point. I don't know what your budget is, but you can pick up a decent one for 10 grand, and I think at that price you can't beat them really. You get quattro 4-wheel drive, plenty of power, good noise, and I wouldn't mind leaving that on the street outside my house. It wouldn't really bother me. Whereas if you had something really expensive, you wouldn't want to leave it there. Hugh Watson, would you ever get a Lexus LC500? Since you've been a big fan of Lexus cars and Grand Tourers, I'm also a big fan of the channel, and I've been watching your videos for about 3 years. Well, thank you very much, Hugh, for watching. Yes, I love the LC, I love the styling. I genuinely, for a short period, considered one before my AMG GT, because it's my kind of car, that. A big, good-looking, comfortable GT car with a V8. But this is the problem Lexus have got across the board. They're a bit of an OAP magnet, aren't they? And even something like the LC, which is great looking, they can't seem to shake off the stigma of being an OAP's dream car. So I think the great cars for 50 grand, you can pick them up for around 50 grand now, and they're reliable, fast, they sound good. I'd love to get one on the channel, so I will try and get hold of one for a video. But would I ever own one? Probably not. Perhaps when my hair's white and I've got a walk-in bath, maybe then, but until then I think I'll struggle with something a bit more sporty. James Shee, dream car. Dream car, straight away off the top of my head, I've got 2 dream cars and they're both classics really. One is a BMW Z8, I think they're gorgeous, the interiors are beautiful, they've got a V8 engine, I just love them, I think they're timeless, and one day I will own one, but they're about 200 grand. My other dream car is a 1960s SL convertible with the pagoda top. I've just always lusted after those cars, I think they're gorgeous. So they're my 2 dream cars basically. Paul Colley, hi Matt, I'll be selling my 2018 Jaguar XE, how can I increase the value of it? You can't really. If you've owned it for the last couple of years, it will have gone up in value anyway, without you doing anything to it whatsoever. So again, just keep it clean, but when you go and trade it in or sell it privately, whatever, take some good photographs of it, or if you're trading it in, just, you know, clean it up. Robert Rushworth, do you think buying a 991 911 Carrera S is an investment at this time? I wouldn't say an investment, because it's not as if it's going to rocket in value anytime soon because it's too new. But it is a safe place to put your money, the 911. They always are. They just don't depreciate as quickly as all the other cars that are similar. It's a sensible sports car basically. You can buy them and run them for 3 or 4 years and not lose an awful lot of money. Paul Keane, hi Matt, really enjoy the channel. My question is, have you tried one of the current Alfa Giulias? We bought one new in 18 and absolutely love it. It'd be great fun to whiz around the roads you do your tests on. Anyway, greetings from New Zealand. Well, thank you very much, Paul. Never been to New Zealand. No, I've never driven one. I think they're great looking cars though. I really must get one on the channel, especially the Quadrifoglio one. And the interiors are stunning. I want to do a review of that, the Giulia, and also the Stelvio, because I think they're great looking as well. Whether or not I'd actually buy one with my own hard-earned money, it's a tough one. I'd probably say not, just because I've got this idea in my head that it will immediately lose half its value and then break. Having said that, I'm a Range Rover fan, aren't I? So you could argue the same thing about that. Arafat Ahmed, I really enjoy your videos, keep them up. I'm a uni student and want to start flipping cars here and there. Would you recommend to sell as a trader or as a private seller? Thanks. The best thing to do if you're just selling cheaper cars is stick to being described as a private seller. I think you're allowed to do half a dozen a year. So stick to that basically. Rather than add a layer of complication, I would stick to cheaper cars under £1,000, cars that you can pick up for £300 or £400, spruce up a little bit and then try and sell for £895 or £995. That's what I used to do from my driveway. There's always a market for it. People are less suspicious basically, and it's a small amount of money for somebody to hand over. I think when you start to ask £10,000 privately, people get a little bit twitchy. So yeah, stick to cheaper cars and stick to being a private seller. DJ Nick001, who do you use for your gearbox servicing? Specifically your L405 Range Rover. Cheers. If you're in this area, then Tameside Transmissions over in Droylsden, they always do my gearbox work. They're very good. They're always busy, but so call them. You can mention me if you like. I don't know whether that will help or not. But they do a great service. They're always quick, and yeah, I trust them to do it. Roll K has asked, what's your biggest problem running your business? Like any other business, I imagine, cash flow, basically. I think if I had an extra couple £100 to play with, then things wouldn't be as much of an issue. I'm offered cars all the time, and more often than not, I haven't got the funds available to go and buy them, so you miss out on a lot of potential profit that way. So basically cash flow, but I'm not on my own there, I don't think. What's Dave done has asked, have you ever written off a car and have you had points on your licence? If so, what's the story behind it? Touch wood, no. I've never had a serious accident. I've had a few little scrapes here and there, but nothing serious. And I've got a completely clean licence and always have had. I have done my fair share of speed awareness courses and all those sorts of things. In fact, I think I had to do 2 last year. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not really a speed freak. I'm quite a slow driver, but I'm just sometimes I'm a bit of a clumsy driver. So my points that I've had, or not points, my speed awareness courses that I had to go on, I was doing 66 on the motorway, I think the M25, and the speed limit had dropped to 60 and I hadn't seen. The other time I was doing 36 in a 30, so I'm hardly Lewis Hamilton, am I? Chris Lee, hi Matt, can you see yourself staying in the Peak District? Is there a part of UK that you would move to? Best regards, Chris. Hi Chris. There's no other real part of the UK that I'd consider moving to. I like it around here. I love the fact that I can drive into Manchester in half an hour. I love the fact that I'm in the open air countryside in 5 minutes. So, no, I quite like it here. I'd move somewhere else in the world, somewhere sunnier, but there's nowhere really sunny in the UK, so no, I'm quite happy here. Thomas A123 has asked, hi Matt, when a customer comes to part exchange their old car, are there any specific red flags about the car or the person themselves that makes you not want to take the risk of their part exchange? Love the videos, by the way. A couple of things. I've had this recently. If somebody tries to part exchange a car that isn't in their name, for example, it's in their dad's name or their uncle's name or their wife's name or whatever, and there's a bit of a story to it, then that's a bit of a red flag, because I'd be thinking, hang on a minute, does the person that owns this car even know that you're here trying to part exchange it? Why aren't they here? Why can't I speak to them? So that's one. The other thing is when it's got a very short MOT. This happens all the time. Usually something's traded in with a month's MOT remaining, which is par for the course. But sometimes when it's only got a day remaining, or the MOT is actually expired, straight away I think, well, you know and I know that that car won't pass its next MOT. So don't try and cover it up. Don't try and hide that fact. I've got all the tools that I can check the car out. So yeah, so basically that. Rob151, why do dealers always put adverts in capitals? It makes it feel like I'm being shouted at. I'm guilty of that. I always use capitals. I don't know why. I just think it's... I don't know. I've got no reason for it. I just think it's, well, more attention grabbing. Liam Sink has asked, do you accept 2 cars as a trade-in for 1 purchase? Would you like to open an additional branch and expand Hype courses in the future? Yeah, possibly. Well, let me, one question at a time. Yes to opening an additional branch of IP Autos, but it would have to add some value, and I wouldn't... The trouble is, I worry about taking on too much, and I worry about spreading myself too thinly, and I think that's where things can start to go wrong. I often use the analogy of spinning plates. You get one plate spinning, then you can do another one, then do another one, then all of a sudden that one starts to wobble. If you take on too much, you can't be everywhere at once. So I'd either have to get good managers in and learn the art of delegation, or perhaps you could franchise it or something, I'm not sure. It's definitely something that I can think about in the future. And to answer your first question, do you accept 2 cars as a trade-in? Yeah. Sometimes I've accepted 3 cars against 1 car. Somebody can quite often say, look, my kid's gone away to uni, we've got their car, plus we've got my wife's car, plus my car, we only needed 1. So yeah. To be honest, I'll take anything in part exchange. I'm really open to ideas. VX471, opinions on the new bunny teeth grills on the M4 and the 4 Series in general. Better than the horizontal grills. At first, I was afraid I was petrified. At first I was mortified, but they've grown on me. I think they're quite a good looking car. I saw one the other day, I don't even know what it was, I think it was a 440 in a very dark green colour with a tan interior, and it was just the most beautiful thing I've seen for ages. So no, like all new car designs, eventually they grow on you. Hi Matt, what's your favourite Toyota? You know what I quite like, and we never got them here in the UK, the FJ Cruiser. I think they're a really quirky car, and it's a shame we never got them. I did look into buying an FJ Cruiser from the United States, shipping it across, and then eventually leaving it in Spain and registering it on Spanish plates, but the prices are horrendous in the US, plus the cost, plus the shipping, plus the tax, plus the post-Brexit sort of nonsense red tape in Spain. That's just put me right off that. I think I'll just continue renting every time I go over there. Keith Ward has asked, I had an E46 M Sport Coupe for years and really need something that we will both drive. Any suggestions? Don't do a lot of miles, but need something interesting that's higher like our Sportage. You could go for an X5. You know what I'd go for, actually? I need to do a video on one of these. An X6. I forget what model designation they're called. But an X6, like an 09 or 2010 X6, I've always really liked those. At first, when they first came out, I didn't like them, but they've grown on me. And I think early ones now look quite classy. They've got the 3 litre 3.5D or whatever it is. Yeah, I think you could do a lot worse than an X6. Garnet Reviews has asked, what about a video based about how you film and edit? I could do actually, yeah, I could do that. I'm not sure who'd watch, but what do you use and what advice can you give for reaching the phenomenal goals you've accomplished? Well, thank you. I'm always quite sort of hard on myself, to be honest, so I don't think I have achieved any phenomenal goals, but I suppose looking back now to where I started, I'm quite pleased with where I am right now. But, that's an interesting one. I suppose really the whole trajectory is that gradual, that you don't wake up every day and think, oh wow, I'm doing really well. It's only when you look back at something from years ago, or you see an old photo, or you remember an old experience and you think, God, I have come quite a long way, to be fair. I do that whenever I see an old photo of my old yard, before I move to where I moved now. So yeah, I should perhaps give myself a pat on the back, but I'm too critical of myself for that. Stephen Overstreet, comfy daily choice on budget. A late L322 Range Rover, pre-facelift X351 Jaguar XJL. I'm seriously looking for one of those as my next daily. That's a tough one. I love the L322, but I love the XJL. You know what, I'd say go for an XJL. Go for a Portfolio top spec and you won't look back. They're great cars. Fairly sensible to run as well, and I haven't found them to be unreliable. They're good on fuel, cheaper to tax than the Range Rover, and very elegant and stately. So yeah, there we go, XJL. Nublet Pie 278 has asked, how often do you get a car that you cannot sell and have to reduce the price to a loss? Fortunately, not that often. Sometimes I get cars that for some reason just stick, whether that's the colour, the spec, or something about them that I don't know, because I do know a fair bit about most cars, but sometimes I get something and think, why is this not sold? When for all I know, there can be some forum saying, oh, don't buy one of those with the 17-inch wheels, nobody buys it, you know, all that sort of stuff. I don't know, I can't know about every possible car. So, what I tend to do, rather than reduce the price and reduce the price and reduce the price, is try and rephotograph it. Try and change your advertising. Sometimes it can be as simple as taking it off the forecourt, washing it, rephotographing it on a nice sunny day with a blue sky rather than a miserable grey one, and that can work. Things like that. So I would try that, a change of tack rather than just constantly reducing the price. The trouble with reducing the price is you eventually reduce it to money back or a loss, and then you've got no profit in it. So then when it breaks, which it might well do, you're then spending money out of your own pocket to repair it. So it's best to change your advertising style rather than the price. Seth Rogers, hello, what 3-door small cars would you recommend? It needs to be semi-auto or auto. Straight away, please take my advice on this, don't go for a semi-automatic, go for a proper automatic. The semi-autos just are unreliable, they're horrible to use. So I would say something like something like a Suzuki Swift with a proper auto. The trouble is lots of small cars now have these stupid semi-auto gearboxes. Why does it need to be 3 doors? Could it not be a 5-door? Because if it were a 5-door, then I would say something like a Kia or a Hyundai, because they're quite reliable. Something like a Kia Venga or a Kia Ceed automatic, they're good news generally. HMan05, what are some tricks to track down service history? This is something that really aggravates me. When I get a car that's traded in or one that I bought from a local main dealer, sometimes they'll be missing chunks of the service history. So then I've either got to write to the previous owner or contact the previous garage who's done the work. What else could I recommend? There are a lot of cars these days that are going digital with their history. Mercedes do it, Mazda do it, loads of people do it. So you could contact that brand or your nearest main dealer and ask them to help you with that. That's one thing that I do on a regular basis. Next up, Lawrence Hardwick. Can't be a Range Rover, but other than one of those, what's the best all-rounder that you'd want to daily drive? It's probably a bit predictable this, but I would say a BMW 530 Diesel M Sport. I like the elevated driving position of a Range Rover though, so something like a Cayenne, Porsche Cayenne, or a Porsche Macan actually. I need to do a video with one of those. I've always quite liked those. I think they're a good size for the UK. They're easier to park, easier to negotiate around a multi-storey car park. They still look the part. The build quality is superb. Maybe something like that. Daniel Birch has asked a similar question. If you had 10k to spend on one car and it had to be your only car, what would you get? Something fairly fast, fairly reasonably affordable to run, practical yet engaging to drive. 530 diesel. Or, just had a thought, I had an Audi A7 S-Line in Daytona Grey that was a beautiful car and I loved driving that. So either an Audi A7 because they're quite affordable or a 530 Diesel M Sport. Checkbound has asked, hello Matt, if business for whatever reason is a bit flat for a period, how do you drum up business? This is something that's quite true this time of year because January is always quiet, so is February. The best thing to do is keep busy. If you sit around with your feet on your desk moaning about how quiet it is, nothing happens. But if you get the forecourt off and get them all cleaned and pump up tyres and keep constantly trying to think of things to do to keep you busy, magically the phone will ring. It happens. That's what we do anyway. It's the most soul-destroying thing to go into work and sit around all day, stood hovering by the radiator trying to keep warm, moaning about how quiet it is and how slow business is. So keep busy and things happen. Alan Robson, hi Matt, I'm going to reduce the size of my car, move to petrol. I have an E-Class diesel and I was looking at the A-Class petrol. Then I found out the A-Class has a Renault-based petrol engine. Is it any good? I'm not a huge fan of the A-Class to be honest. They're okay, but I would rather have... What I would say is go for a Lexus... What's it called? The name's just... CT. Lexus CT 200H. They're far better, way more reliable, cheaper to tax, cheaper to run, slower, and it's got an annoying CVT box, but you'll get over that. So yeah, go for a Lexus CT. Go for an SEL model though, so it's got all the toys. JB has said, Happy New Year Matt. Happy New Year JB. What destination would you recommend for a Continental car road trip, starting in England of course? Love the videos and your reviews help me pick out my new motor. Well thank you. Definitely, I would say Italy. I love Italy, and if you can drive through the Alps, through France and everything, and then just do a tour of Italy basically. Everywhere you stop you'll get good food, good wine, nice people, good scenery, nice driving roads. So yeah, hope that helps. Or also what I want to do actually is do the Atlantic coast to Spain, but round the Atlantic coast, so the Bay of Biscay, so northern Spain, San Sebastian, Bilbao, down through Porto, Lisbon, and then across southern Spain. That'd be quite good. But I think the Italy one is a safer bet because you're guaranteed good food and wine basically. Tarek TV Productions has asked, he's asked lots of questions Tarek, I'm not going to answer them all, but I will pick number 8. What do you think of the redesign of the Range Rover? It's growing on me. At first I thought it's a bit ugly, it's a bit slab-sided. I can see what they've tried to do by cleaning up the design, but it's such a big car. It's just a bit plain looking. And I also don't like the rear with that Village People handlebar moustache. It just looks a bit strange, but I'm sure in the right colour, I'm sure I'll love it. I'm sure I will. I'll have to try and get hold of one this year when they get released. Try and do a review of one. Here's a question that a lot of people have asked. Anson Courtney May has asked, hi Matt, what are your views on the current car price inflation bubble? How long do you think it'll last? as a business, are you worried that when it bursts you'll be left with stock that you've paid too much for? This is a concern, definitely, because when you do a car check, a car data check basically, it will tell you what that car booked at, what the book price was every month for the last year. And quite often we're paying a 2 or 3 grand premium for cars based on their price 12 months ago, and it's worrying because all of a sudden if it falls off the edge of a cliff tomorrow, I'm going to be left with 25 cars that I'm 2 grand the wrong way on, and all of a sudden I can go backward alarmingly quickly. So that said though, I don't think it will. I think it will just, the prices will come back down very, very gradually. We still have this issue with the supply of new cars, and even when that's sorted, there's a huge backlog of orders to get through, so it's not going to happen. It won't be like flicking a switch. It won't happen overnight. So eventually prices will fall back in line, I think, but that could be 12 months away. Basmina has asked, I'm looking to replace my F-Type R, but 911s don't excite me. They don't excite me either. And R8s I hear are overrated. What would you recommend for sub 100k? This is a tricky one because I've had a similar, I can't believe I'm saying this, I've had a similar dilemma recently, and I bought an AMG Mercedes GTS because that was the best thing that I could think of for, well, 70 grand or thereabouts. If I had 100 grand to spend though, I think I'd go for an R8, but the newer version, I think, are they 2017 onwards where they changed the shape? I would go for one of those, I think. The ones that the R8s that I was looking at around the 50, 60, 70 grand mark were all the old shape and they just looked extremely dated, but the new shapes, I think I'd probably go with one of those. Oliver Christie has asked, what's a car that you like that everyone else hates? There are loads of those, to be honest. My taste is a bit weird. I quite like, well, I very much like the PT Cruiser, and I know that's a car that's been panned by everybody. And yeah, I like those. I also like the Fiat Multipla, that are absolutely hideous. I can't defend the styling, but there's just something very characterful and quirky about them. What else? Well, they're two shining examples for you anyway. Just a quickie, my daughter has asked, what safe first car is good? I think she meant, would a 2004 A-Class be better than a 2010 Corsa? She wants a 2006 E46, last model year, but friends are pushing her towards newer Twingos, Clios, Fox Polos, etc. I'm not sure I'd go for a 2004 A-Class, to be honest. It would be better built than a 2010 Corsa, but you're better off, and I know I've said this frequently throughout today's Q&A, but I would go for something like a Suzuki Swift. They're really great cars. Just make sure the gearbox doesn't whine. It's a tricky one with the first car, isn't it? Because you've got to get insurance quotes and stuff. More often than not with insurance for first-time drivers, it's weird how it works. They go off many factors basically, but they go off the cars that are most likely to have been involved in car accidents and stuff. So sometimes you can get a quote for something like an E46 that you would think would be far higher than a Clio, and it can actually be cheaper. So it is worth playing around with lots of different regs and try and find something that suits your budget. Beefy McWhatnow has asked, with a £4,000 budget, what's the best small daily driver for short trips to and from work, under 5 miles each way? I'd cycle, but I carry equipment. I've looked at Yaris Jazz. Is it worth paying extra for 2006 onwards Civic 1.8, or is that pointless for such a short journey? You're on the right track. I think whichever one of those you pick, you won't go wrong. Personally, I would go for a Civic 1.8 because they're bulletproof and they're interesting to look at. They're quite cool cars, to be honest. So yeah, I would go for a Civic. Well, that's it. I'm sorry if I didn't get around to answering your question, but I got that many I could have done a series about this. So I will do another one in the near future. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know below and I'll do my very best to get back to you. So cheers guys, I'll see you next time.